Okay, hello and welcome back, everyone. This is Ben Chiriboga, the Chief Growth Officer here at Nexl, coming to you with another This Legal Life podcast. This is a fireside chat, and I am very, very excited to be sitting down with Sergio Olivares, who is the managing partner of Olivares Law Firm. Sergio, welcome to the fireside chat.
Hi, hello, Ben. Good morning, and very happy to be here with you to talk about some interesting topics, intellectual property topics here. And thanks for
Yes.
the invitation.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you. These fireside chats, in case you're not familiar, is where we get to go deep on a specific topic, either a practice of law issue around intellectual property, M&A, etc., some deep sensitive topic, or a business of law topic, maybe business development, the changing nature of law firm practices, etc. Sergio, as you mentioned, today we're going to go deep on intellectual property and kind of the changing nature of intellectual property. But before we do, why don't we talk a little bit about your practice? I know you are the managing partner at the firm. You've been with the firm quite some time now, leading it, and you've had a very long career as a lawyer, member of many, many associations. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure, absolutely. As you commented before, I'm managing partner of the Olivares law firm. It's a law firm that was founded 54 years ago by my father, and right now there's already a third generation of Olivares, but nevertheless we are 11 partners. So it is now an institution more than a family business, which we are proud of that. As commented, our law firm is almost 100% devoted to intellectual property. We have, however, a small area devoted to corporate issues now, but it has worked for the better because there are always corporate things that go by the hand with intellectual property matters, like assignments, even mergers that include IP rights, So right now, as I was telling you, the managing partner since 10 years ago, and doing work regarding patents and trademarks and involved in some litigations. So more or less that's my background, and I've been around for 30 or more years. Okay.
Let me ask you. You said there's a third generation, so I take it that your children are also working at the firm or lawyers. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. My son has become a lawyer, and it is now working in the law firm in our firm. So yeah, it is the third generation because my father founded it. Then I've been around for some years, and now my son, that it's also named Sergio, by the way.
Oh wow, yeah, amazing.
Okay.
So why don't we? This is an interesting place to start because your father, of course, probably started the firm sometime in the. I'm assuming maybe in the 60s, in the late 50s, early 60s, sometime around there, and then moved in. You probably joined somewhere around the 80s, 90s, and of course, your son Sergio is now coming into the firm in the 2000s. My point is technology in
Mhm.
that period of time has really changed a lot
Mhm.
from when your father was practicing to where you were at today. I think we wanted to start the discussion with talking about some of the challenges and some of the opportunities of the new emerging sort of technologies. There's the pace of technological change, of course, is increasing dramatically, and I think that, of course, presents some challenges and opportunities for how IP law can sort of keep up. And I wanted to sort of talk about, what's the state of IP law today based on this kind of rapid change, and what's the general high level whenever it comes to intellectual property, combining with all of these new technologies that have certainly exploded over the last 10, 15, 20 years?
Right. Yeah, it's a interesting topic or and topics that you have mentioned it. As since my father started up to this date, things technologically wise have changed dramatically. I was going to say a lot, but not really that dramatically. No, I think the best example right now it's what's going on with the GPT, for example. No, that we are seeing right now that it is it has started to be used more and more and more by the younger people than the older ones. That's my feeling, or that's my perception here. You need to be very careful, however. It's something that it's there. It can help you. It's something that one would never have thought it could ever happen. The fact that the machine learns how to do things and how to even perhaps be considered an inventor, you know, which it is not a true fact yet, as far as I know. But there have been steps, as I have read, in certain countries where this is trying to be achieved. But so far, it cannot be considered an inventor, and the fact is that it's what for example this Chat GPT does is sometimes between a thin line of legal and plagiarism. So you need to be very careful on this. You need to be very careful because although it's an opportunity of a new emerging technology, you can risk if you don't do it correctly and you don't precise the use of it, you can even do things that could fall in violations to the law, because you're
Right.
copying things that do not know that are protected by unfair competition laws, by copyright laws, and that are given to you by this machine. So you need to be very careful. No, I think that's right now a an emerging beautiful technology, but we need to be very careful, and it's a
Yeah.
challenge to deal with it right now because there is still legal uncertainty on this on the use of this. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
that would be my point right now. No,
Yeah.
as,
Totally.
as
I have a question for you. Somebody once explained to me. I was telling you that I used to work. People who have heard the show know that I used to practice law. I was never an IP lawyer, but I sat next to IP lawyers. And one day, the partner kind of explained to me the following about all of these new technologies that are joining, and he sort of broke it down for me and said, digital content has a lot to do with copyright law. Who actually owns the copyright? And there's problems around copyright law. Artificial intelligence, to your point, starts to make points about who is the actual creator, who's the actual inventor. The point that he was trying to make is that when new technologies come, it challenges sort of the law, and it challenges what the law understands, and can grapple with. Is that kind of a good statement? Would you agree with that? That as technology changes, the law needs to sort of change with it as well, and that's kind of one of the challenges that the legal profession and even the bodies of law are dealing with, which is the rapid acceleration of change. Is that a fair
absolutely,
statement?
absolutely. You need to keep up with new emerging and challenging legal issues, and you know what, that has been achieved to some extent through through adhering to international treaties, and that is the case for Mexico and some other or more countries. Mexico since 1991 started when it started to negotiate a free trade agreement with the United States and achieve it in 1994. Included an intellectual property chapter that needed to be harmonized to the best of the extent with the U.S. laws. You will assume that that is almost impossible. It's like something that it's quite hard. It's pretty hard, But I think it's something that through time it develops itself through changes or amendments to the laws, And since that time, Mexico adopted important not only criterias but legal concepts from the United States. And in this last law, for example, Mexican law that came into effect a year and a half ago, for example, we adopted the concept of secondary meaning. Secondary meaning was something that was for Mexican lawyers. Never thought that we could have as part of our law that concept. No, through time achieve distinctiveness. Of the achievement of distinctiveness through time, and be able to prove it. But as a legal concept inserted in the law, that was something one could ever dream. And so now it's a reality. So yeah, we need to adapt through changes, but changes that are more coordinated and better done through in this case through globalization of laws, through free trade agreements. That's free trade agreements, or even steps taken in first world countries, like right now has happened in Europe with the unitary patent. Now there was a unitary patent, but before this amendment, you need to validate the rights in each country. Now those steps have been erased, and now you can get the unitary patent without requiring again the validation in each country, for example. No? So the tendency is, to do things easier without less bureaucracy, less money, less fees. So it's interesting, no? For example, let me go on with this because it's interesting. If we want to take this example to the Latin American situation, it would be very hard to think of a Latin American patent because not our laws are very different. So it would be quite difficult to put it in nice words.
Yes. So let me ask a question, because I take your point, and we started to talk about globalization. And globalization, some people think that globalization, and specifically the fact that technology does not really have national lines, these two forces are sort of pushing the need for globalized laws. Now, you sort of mentioned a little bit about the idea of a universal or unitary patent. That's the idea. I know that there are other problems with globalization and the global nature of technology, and that has a lot to do with IP protection. That has a lot to do with different cultural enforcement for
Yeah.
intellectual property. Do you want to say a little bit about the other challenges that the international nature of technology and globalization have sort of put on intellectual property? Um, yeah, you can talk about any of these other challenges
Yeah.
that you
I
sort of
can,
feel.
I can, of course, I will be delighted to comment on keep commenting on global issues or globalization issues regarding
Hmm.
IP laws. And I think, and I have good and bad examples, to be candid, with respect to the impact globalization has had so
Yeah.
far. Basically, with respect to Mexico. For example, the good things is that we have achieved, for example, with the United States and some other countries, acceleration of the granting of patents with the so-called PPH, patent prosecution of a patent right now, or the PPG, which is an specific situation done between the United States Patent and Trademark Office and the Mexican Trademark Office. No, so that has giving us the possibility to accelerate the granting of patents, which is good, and that deals or relates to one to two or more countries. In this case, two. No, but there's cases in which because, as I was telling you, when adhering to treaties and happens that the Mexican laws or the laws, the domestic laws, are not in harmony with with uh, with with the laws of the country where you achieve the treaty. No, that can create difficulties. But in this case, I should go beyond this because there's this international treaty called the Madrid Protocol. It's a treaty
Uh-huh.
regarding trademarks, the protection of trademarks globally. It's mainly a European treaty, but now it's a global one. And if we are not in perfect harmony, almost, you will create problems in your country because it will not go by the hand with this international treaty, and the users might not be aware of certain specific obligations in the country, in one of the countries where you chose, in this case Mexico, and you will be risking your registration. In other words, let me give you an example. Like, I mean, you need to declare use, in Mexico after 3 years of registration has been granted, and the treaty does not consider that because it's not part of the treaty. So if you want to go through the treaty to protect in Mexico without using a Mexican lawyer, you will not know these type of obligations, and you will be risking the validity of your registration. So you need an attorney in Mexico to tell you this type of specific obligations that are not included in the treaty. And the purpose of the treaty was basically, or one of the purposes, in my point of view, was to try to avoid the hiring of local lawyers to
Right. Right.
to avoid, legal fees. That's the
Sure.
truth.
Sure.
So
Sure.
so you need to be careful. Globalization is good, but you need to really be cautious how to use or to treat IP rights in this global arena, legal arena. No, you need to be
Yeah.
careful. still.
Yeah.
I'm glad because I'm an attorney, and you know
Sure,
what?
sure.
Attorneys live of problems. You know what I mean?
100%. Of course. I was speaking to an attorney yesterday in Israel, and we were talking about M&A deals for technology companies. And of course, every lawyer who's ever practiced knows the famous phrase, good times or bad times, lawyers still do good, right? It doesn't really matter. Things go up, things go down. Doesn't matter if you're buying a business or selling a business, it still goes down. But to your point, it's the complexity and issues are always good, are always good times for lawyers. I
Yeah,
I want to summarize where we're at in the conversation because I think it's a good point. The first topic of conversation was around the fact that increasing exponential rate of technologies is really driving IP law to really reconsider itself on a constant basis, including trying to create global frameworks. The second point was that globalization is also pushing IP law to how does it make itself global at the same time keeping itself local. So you have this global local issue that's being sort of caused by globalization. I want to ask you, putting aside the legal frameworks or putting aside the practice of law, when it comes to the business of law, you've now been running a law firm for over 30 years. Has when you take a look at the type of clients and the type of work, has it increased in the international caliber of the type of work? In other words, has all this globalization pushed more global work through your doors?
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it has helped to get more business, more clientele. Although through years that fact has become also difficult. I think it was I think it was easier to put it in a word.
Right.
Let's say 15 years ago, more or less, to get clientele, but because there's more competition right now, for example. But again, globalization has helped. Uh, Another thing, in my point of view, is that Mexico, it's a country which, geographically speaking, is it's an interesting hub, if I may say, or an interesting.
Hmm.
It's situated in an interesting part of the world, close to the United States, which is good because a lot of the intellectual property that is created or developed in the world comes from the United States. To be candid, and that is good for us, because it's a natural part to protect for the Americans because Americans that like to do business in Mexico.
Right.
And after Mexico, there's Latin Americans. Sometimes they use us as a hub, or definitely has helped. No, but that's more or less the situation. If I don't know if I answer your question. No.
Yes, you did. No, it's I like the fact that you said it's good and bad. It's increased work, but also increased competition. So
Yeah,
nothing is ever perfect, right?
absolutely. Yeah, and you know what? That goes by the hand with certain key issues in my mind that I need to comment. I think that
Okay.
it's yeah, that deals with let's say, let me put it in slogans, sort of, so to say, like
Uh-huh.
consumers or clients want more for less.
Yes.
There are new competitors, as I was saying, but and that are not necessarily attorneys. These new platforms that
Sure.
are
Sure.
outside that have become competitors, and one can say that it's that is not that it's unfair competition, that they're not attorneys, blah blah blah. But the true fact is that they're there, and they are doing patent and trademark work for less money. You know, so we need to be creative also, and we need to, uh, by being creative and being and or becoming more of a business man also, not only an attorney. That some attorneys look things squarely. No, you know what I mean. And
Of
and and
course.
so we have become also more of a business guys than only attorneys. So because we need to overcome and we need to challenge and we need to fight against that issues, no? And there's technology. That's the other one, which is not as low in technology, of course, but there are three things that have been around already for more than 10 years already that has really uh, uh, put pressure on us, you know. I think competition is good, nevertheless, and let's keep up, and we need to be, again, as I was telling you, uh, or become more of a business people, you know.
Yeah, I your comment reminds me again. Yesterday, I was doing another fireside chat with the same attorney in Israel, and he put it as follows: today we have technology, which is driving down the cost of delivering legal services in some form or fashion, while also increasing competition. We have we have global law firms or increased competition from the perspective of matters are global and clients are looking for large law firms who maybe can do have either offices, small offices in local jurisdictions, or multiple lawyers in different jurisdictions. So the idea of the global law firm as a phenomenon only happened about 20 years ago, in part driven by globalization. So that's the second. And the last thing he said was client expectations. What clients want and how they want their services delivered are changing. There's new generations of people. The average business person now might be in their 40s, but were born it was born in the 80s and have come up with technology. Things are of course changing. The generation after that, of course, will just never have known anything except for the internet and a smartphone. And so the client expectations are changing. So these three things on the business side of law and maybe even the practice of law are forcing an evolution within law firms. Is that fair to say, even from your perspective in sort
Oh
of the
yeah,
IP and or the Mexican law firm?
absolutely agree with that. Absolutely
Yeah.
agree with that. And somehow they sort of like how do you call in English interact, with what I
Yeah.
said,
Same.
and with
Same.
this
Yeah.
attorney from Israel. Somehow they overlap, if I may say it, or
Yes.
interact. And,
Yep.
and yeah, it's, the platforms are. It's, I think it's a good example of what has happened. In my point of view, uh, not good at all. I'm a conservative attorney, but also become
Sure.
a a businessman and an aggressive businessman. Like,
Sure.
and I need to balance that.
Right. Right.
Between conservative and aggressive. I need to balance that, and I have tried to do that in order to also fight and challenge these type of things. And I think we have done a good job, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
things. I think, in my view, after the storm ends and clients start to see again the horizon, they see, hey, listen, be careful, we still need these guys, but we also now have this one. So let's also balance things. And I think
Yes.
a good life is made out of a good balance of things,
Yes. Well, I like
Metaphorically
your
speaking, yeah.
metaphorically speaking. Yes. I no. I like the idea. It's as time goes, things just get more complex, right? Things always open up, and they go farther and farther. And I feel what we just discussed, we're coming to the end of our time, and I want to ask you maybe to wrap up and give some forecast or your perspective on the future. But I feel like we there was a big theme in our conversations. So the first was is that on the practice of law, IP law is simply becoming more complex, driven in part by technology. It's having to be both global and local together, some sort of synthesis together. And on the
Yeah,
practice of law, I feel like we've also gone to the sake that there's now this balance between being a businessman and being a practicing lawyer. And today, you have to sort of do both at the same time. So that's sort of the theme. Things are just
that's
simply
true.
becoming more complex and more balanced. These two things to really
Absolutely.
rise to the occasion. Do you feel
Absolutely.
like that's a good summary?
Oh yeah, you're good. Yeah, I think I agree with you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's end with some forecast. You're going to be practicing for a while, and of course your son Sergio, he's going to also be practicing for a very long time after this, most likely.
Yeah.
What's going to happen in the let's start with the practice of law. What do you believe is going to happen in intellectual property law? Are there any interesting innovations in the law that you find interesting?
Yeah, I think the law keeps evolving, and that's good. Either domestically or through, as I was telling you, joining or signing or adhering to international treaties, and
Yeah.
that is important. And I let me give you an example. Now in Mexico, you can claim or file a claim of damages simultaneously to a claim of trademark infringement, for example, at the
Yeah.
same time. And one can go, the damage claim goes to civil courts or even the trademark office, and the infringement claim goes directly to the trademark office. But before this amendment, you needed to wait for the administrative proceedings of the infringement to be resolved beyond shadow of appeal, and that
Hmm.
could have or did to take us sometimes 5, 6, 7 years.
Right.
So the client or the trademark owner, you know, who wants to claim damages after 6 years when the infringement stopped because the litigation, blah blah blah. So these are
Right.
new things. It's an example of a new thing that
Yeah.
it's included in the law. There are other ones, but I think this one is it's highlights. I don't want to see the pros and cons because there are, but
Yeah.
in
Right.
generally the provision it's a good one. The
Yeah.
provision is a
Yeah.
good one. So I think in that sense the law will be evolving, maturing as always, and we need to create it, and we need to that's I love that,
Yeah.
and that's what keeps the law alive, and everything regarding or around the law alive, and well, the question was regarding that, no, the
Yes. Yes.
what are
So I wanted to ask you now on the business of law, the other side of our conversation. You said that you have felt like you have had to evolve yourself and turn from practicing lawyer to a businessman and find the right balance between conservative lawyer and full force businessman. Where
right.
do you think the business of law is going as we continue on? Is Sergio the third going to be practicing or running a law firm in the same way that you will and you do currently, or what do you believe is gonna happen over the next 10, 20 years?
Well, I think a challenge is how are we going to keep on growing? You know, we don't really want to be the largest ones. We don't care, but we want to grow intelligently wise. You know,
Yes.
and there are forms, and we're trying to. determine which forms business wise are to be chosen or to be detected or to be studied to achieve that growth. And not only growth through what we used to grow in the past, which was through getting clients. Right
Yes.
now, I mean, it's not easy. It's not as easy as it used to be. So we need. That's why, in this example, the business situation comes in hand. So I think my son and my partners. Again, I was telling you, we're 11 partners. My
Yeah.
son is not
Right.
even a partner right now. So he will become one. I'm certain of that. I think so. But we need to work on that and not to state as the usual conservative or classic attorney of the past. No, it's very
Mm-hmm.
different. No, so it's a challenge,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we love challenges, and we're prepared for that. So we'll do good. I am certain
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to stop. The challenges of the future really just present opportunities for us, right?
Absolutely.
Opportunities for us to change and grow, both on the law side as well as the business side. So you can look at the world half empty or half full, right? And I think
Right.
staying positive
Right.
is important. Let's go ahead and wrap up. Sergio, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. Any last words? Any parting words? Do you want to plug anything? Anything exciting for the next 6 months as we close the year?
Well, no, right now, well, I mean, things are going okay. After the pandemic, I'm glad to tell you that not for us, but I think for everyone, things are starting to become more of what we used to know as normal, and I think it's good. And we have overcome this pandemic situation, and that opens up again the horizon and the world
Right.
for things to be done. No, so I'm happy of that, and well, all type of challenges. I think no, business and law like challenges. No,
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. Good end to the good end to the fireside chat. Thank you so much, Sergio Olivares, the managing partner of Olivares Law Firm, a leading IP firm in Mexico City. It was a pleasure to speak with you on this fireside chat. And thank you so much to everybody else. We will be back very soon. Take care, everyone. And thank you, Sergio, for all the time.
bye bye. Thank you, Ben. Have a nice day. Bye.